All right. Good evening, all my founding Lord Father fans and cats and kittens. How's everybody doing tonight? You doing good? So
I'm
we
doing
got
well.
we got Richard, Dan, and John here once again, and tonight we have got quite a conundrum of just pure coincidence. And for those of you who I work with, and that we've kind of like given out a little bit of information here and there, I know y'all are on your edge of your seat because I've hyped this one up pretty good. It's definitely going to be a story that you're going to cling to, and it's got a few twists and turns that are just going to keep you on the edge of your seat. I know it did for me. I don't know about you guys when you were doing your research.
I mean, you're just assuming they're sitting. They could be standing. They could be doing handstands.
I know a couple of you are standing. I'll probably be standing right next to you by the time you actually listen to this, and you're going to turn to me and be like, "Hey, I got another shout out."
I actually saw someone doing handstands today, so they could be listening on their hands. This could be a Dr. Seuss world. We don't know.
And for those of you who, if you know, you know, that's not all he did today.
It's a fun day for me. It's early voting. Y'all go vote. It's fun stuff.
Don't be a dick, folks.
Don't be a dick. Don't be a dick while you're doing it, or be the biggest dick there. It's your choice.
Sometimes when your name is Richard, you're the biggest dick in the room.
I mean, all politics are just a big dick measuring contest, anyways.
Pissing contest work too.
If you guys haven't figured this one out yet, just read between the lines there.
That's fun stuff. Well, anyways, so
by the way, I wanted to give a shout out. We've got a few new subscribers, and it was brought to my attention about 5 minutes ago, and I'm just happy that anyone at all listens to us because we put almost a mediocre amount of effort into it.
Yeah, we kind of try pretty good, best we can, anyways.
Especially we all work full-time jobs and run full-time households. So
yeah, I do a lot of writing, man. It's actually kind of depressing how much time I spend in front of a computer, but I will say it is fun doing this as a change of pace.
Yeah.
I need to get back into writing. I keep saying, like, I want to do this. I want to write music. And then I just don't do anything, like, at all. Like
no balls. Used to. Do it. You just got to do it to it, man.
It's not that easy, especially the older you get, like, that will and desire. Like, it's like, I don't really have it anymore. I try to watch those videos online where they're trying to yell at people to, like, oh, you got to do it. Yeah, you think that life is easy, it's hard and stuff. And it's just like, I just kind of want to just go somewhere and die. This is what I have to get motivated, just have some weird jackass yell at me all the time and then spray me with a hose.
The only jackass who should be yelling at you is Shia LaBeouf.
Have you seen those videos of those guys that, like, they have like that man camp or whatever, and like they make these guys, they pay like $20,000 to go to like California or something to lay down in low tide and have the ocean wash over them while these guys yell at them. And then they go inside, they starve them for 2 weeks, and then spray them with hoses, like, while yelling at them. Like, like $20,000 for this.
Such a weird thing. It's a phenomenon that happens. So there's a lot of people our age who have this weird idea that they should have joined the military. It's like a measure of manhood. And I came across some people who had done something like that. So I was when I started getting back into shape a few years ago, I came across a local group, and they do ruck marches. I was like, I'll probably come across another veteran or something like that. I mean, that's cool. Sure, I'll go out and do that. And none of them were veterans. They were all just people, and they were talking about that experience, and they were talking about it with like a big smile on their face, like it was this challenging thing, and it made them feel like they were living up to their expectations. And if that's good for you, I guess. But like, I don't get it. I don't.
Yeah.
I got paid to do that. I did that because there was a recession, and
Right.
I needed. They stopped giving me jobs as a painter, so
Yeah.
I had to do something. But yeah, no, dude, people do it, and then shout out to the fucking veterans who are out there just scamming those motherfuckers out of money. I would love to get paid that much money just to call somebody inferior for 2 weeks.
And spray
Yeah,
them with a hose.
usually
Like,
do
yeah,
that shit for free.
I get that does make this country beautiful. Like the fact that you can just get someone to give you $10,000 to let you spray them with a hose and yell at them.
That reminds me of that McCamey Manor where the guy he offered a $20,000 reward to anybody that could make it in his intense haunted house with a safe word. And all he was doing is he built a chicken wire cage in his backyard and he was spraying them in the face with a hose until they quit.
Well, that one guy did it.
Yeah.
He sued them
Yeah.
because of that.
And now he owns he bought the actual rights to the guy's company online and opened his own McCamey Manor, and it's better than the actual one, and he offers real prize money. It's a real
that's a fun story.
Yeah.
It's online. It's one you can follow on YouTube. It reminds me, Richard, did you ever watch All Gas No Brakes?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I saw a few here and there. I was never a dedicated YouTube follower.
Have you seen it? He's back with he doesn't do that anymore. He does Channel 5 News. And did you see his most recent one?
I know he made a movie and got caught being a weirdo, like a sex pest or some shit. That's all I know.
No, this one they go down to, I forgot which town. It's on the border, and they decided I wonder what it's like to see, firsthand view of people crossing the Rio Grande. So they decide to sneak into Mexico with cameras and hire real coyotes, which coyotes are people that help smuggle people into America. And as Americans, they snuck back into America illegally, and they got caught and they got sent to Border Patrol.
Oh, shit.
They had to go through the whole thing because they snuck in illegally. And they were detained for 4 or 5 days.
Oh, that's
God.
amazing.
Oh, it's
dude,
fun.
what a life those people are living.
Right.
That's their version of, I'm repeating my words again. That version of journalism is becoming probably the best journalism we have ever since television became a thing, and all of a sudden it morphed from news into entertainment. And now we have the Dominion and all that, where everyone's just fucking lying to everybody, trying not to get caught.
What do you even call that type of journalism?
Well, it's kind of you had gonzo journalism where you make yourself part of the story, which is what Hunter S. Thompson was based on. It's kind of like that, a new version of it is what I would say. But it's really our only form of real journalism because everything has become so polarized, and it's not about seeking the truth anymore. It's about just picking a side, and then the other side is the problem. Did you see how Jon Stewart came back to The Daily Show and he criticized Trump and Biden, which is something he's always done. And he's getting attacked, of course, by the people on the right, but he's getting attacked just as badly by people on the left because he had bad things to say about Biden. Dude, Biden's old. He's barely hanging on. And
all right. Look.
I'm just saying, shut up. I'm just saying, that's our own real journalism now. It's just these people seeking the truth.
Yeah, well, it's true. And that's what sucks, because this dude, I mean, he's got a deadpan delivery. It's dry. He doesn't show excitement either way.
Yeah.
And then he just finds a slice of Americana and shows it. And his movie, I'm sorry?
He's got hairy legs.
He's not talking about Biden. He's talking about the.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not talking about fucking Mr. Corn Pop. No, I'm talking about the all gas no brakes guy. Yeah, no, dude, that's a whole. Our system's broken, and it's just going to end in a civil war soon. So whatever.
With podcasts, with what we're doing, and then just some of the other podcasts out there, that's the only place you're really finding real news and stories. It's everybody's, rejecting what they try to make us watch now, and we're seeking out this kind of stuff because we want real stories and real news.
If you can find a way to convey something without having an actual opinion, just
Or
show
agenda.
the raw exact what it is for what it is, then like you're onto something.
Yeah.
Well, that's what what's I don't even know what the guy's fucking name is, but that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
He went in, so he did a I guess it was a COVID election special. It was a full documentary. It's a movie. It's on Netflix, not Netflix. It's on HBO Max. At least it was. Where he talks to the people who are like following QAnon, and
Yeah.
it's so anticlimactic at the end. Like, at least one of them realizes like the shit was wrong. He's just
Right.
like, they told me what was going to happen, and it didn't happen. And then his wife's like, "That's right, that's right." She's just supporting this motherfucker through everything. Like,
Yeah.
is insane. Like, oh yeah, he thinks that they're gonna come and they're gonna burn down the motel. And she's like, "That's right." And she's just putting her. It's fucking. It's amazing. It really is. And then at the end, it's just like, nope, I knew they lied to me. So it's worth watching. I don't know what the fuck the name of it is, but if you have HBO Max, check it out. Yeah, it's. I'm up to watch that border crossing one. That's pretty intense. So I know one of the things that I've wanted to do is I've wanted to sit down and interview like a second generation, like someone whose parents came across illegally and then came here. Because I had a very, very long conversation with somebody at a park not too far from where I'm at, and he's been in the country for 21 years, and he was explaining how he's been renting for 21 years. He hasn't been able to build anything for himself because of his status, and that's it's pretty sad. I mean, he's paying taxes. I mean,
We had a friend like that.
I can't say much. I'm my family's been here at least going into the early 1800s, and I can't build anything for myself. I'm full-fledged American.
Well, you're old and just want to die now, so I'm sorry. That sounds so goddamn depressing.
I just want to get online and tell some stories and write some music and make some videos for some folks.
Oh man,
Makes you
I
laugh.
have fun with it. I do.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the whole process and what we've been doing. But anyways, so Dorthy Donovan, let's talk about
let's
this
do what we do.
clusterfuck of a story.
Man,
Right.
it really is. Like, so we're gonna get into this story, but I just want a little like side note here. Like, so me and John were watching this, and I'm usually pretty good about like figuring something out. Like, I remember one girlfriend I had used to get mad at me because I could figure out the twist in Black Mirror episodes in like the first 5 minutes, and she just gets so mad because I figure it out, and she'd be like, why do you know this? So I do this with some of these true crime stories, but this one, like, it threw a curveball at me, and I was just like, okay, well,
Twice.
yeah,
Yeah,
it really did.
It'll get you twice.
It's not believable. It's not, but it happened. And that's the great thing about our world.
Yeah,
I ruined Scooby-Doo a long time ago, and that was a fun story. I had a girlfriend. We started Scooby-Doo, and like 3 minutes in, I was like, "It's Scrappy." Spoiler, and sure enough, it was Scrappy at the end.
Oh,
So
wow.
she was convinced. Yeah, of course, this is years ago, so we're probably, I don't know, late teens, whatever. And she was convinced that I watched the movie before her, and that was way too much fucking drama in my life.
I wonder who the oldest person was to not figure out Blue's Clues mysteries.
What's the age threshold?
They're just like, they could not figure out what the clues were telling them, and they were just so excited whenever the reveal happened.
Goddamn telephone! What? Oh man! Yeah.
He wanted to make tacos today. Stu, you are 34. This show is meant for children.
I tell you what, man. the greatest thing. There's 2 times in my life that I actually almost shed a tear over a TV personality. One was when Mr. Rogers, you found out 2 things. One, that he not only read every card from every child that it was ever sent to him, but he also sent them back birthday cards and letters, at least one letter every year, as long as the show was running. But then he got online or on the air and gave a send off at the end of the show, and like just went through his whole career. And the other was when we were all adults and Steve came on, and you know what I mean, and put on the old Blues Clues sweater and just relived his childhood or their childhoods with them. I thought that was really cool.
Told everyone we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome. He's got a fun story. So he left Blues Clues and became like a grunge, like a death metal, like lead singer or some shit.
Yeah,
and that's the best thing possible for someone on Blues Clues. All that pent up, like Nickelodeon, like, okay, don't do anything, just you don't ruin the money.
Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah. So anyway, so it was a dark and dreary night in Delaware.
Actually, let's see. Let's set the scene. It was midnight, June 22nd, 1991. And like any other work night, 41-year-old Charles Holden was in a few miles of his home and decided he was going to stop at his local Hardee's in Harrington, Delaware before turning in and going home. That set a pretty good picture there.
I mean,
I get it.
Hardee's had to be good at some time, a point in time in its existence. So
I wonder if it's such a small town that was like the only place that was open. Because I know I've been in those little truck stop towns.
We're from one of those towns. They had a parade when they opened up a McDonald's in our town back in Tennessee.
We had a parade at the Morehead City Walmart when it opened up. The high school marching band went out there. I guess it's a thing.
Yeah, it is a thing.
Well, I mean, you got to think so. Like, I remember, like, we didn't have a 24-hour spot, and I remember McDonald's was open up till like it had the drunk hours. It was open till like 1, and I remember going there just high as shit. Like, I remember distinctly one night, me and my co-pilot got to the drive-thru and ordered food, and then looked at each other and realized we were too stoned to drive. So we pulled on over. We're like, I can't go through. We couldn't go through the drive-thru and talk to somebody.
It's funny how much fast food atmosphere changes between like a Thursday night at 2:00 in the morning and then a Friday night at 2:00 in the morning. It's a completely different group of people in there getting burgers.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue on with the story. So he turned into his local Hardee's. He just turned in from work, and a man that he had never met before appeared in his window, and he hit him immediately with some kind of sob story about how he was trying to get a couple towns over into Georgetown, which I believe was only 3 miles from Harrington, Delaware. I'm not exactly sure. I know it wasn't far. But he said that his sister had just had a baby and he was trying to get there and he doesn't have a vehicle. And regardless, our hero here, Mr. Charles Holden, at first was, he had seen the guy go up to a couple other windows. So I'm sure he wasn't feeling too guilty about telling him, nah, I'm not too far from my house. I'm kind of ready to go home. It's late, because he worked the graveyard shift, if I remember correctly. So we're talking, this is between midnight. I think it's between 11:30 and midnight, if I'm correct. At this time.
That's what I recall. Now,
Right.
Have you guys ever worked those late night shifts before?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
They suck. They really
Yeah.
do. But I just had a memory shake loose about staying up late and eating. We had a place called Bayside. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it.
Yes.
And there was a gentleman I knew that worked at a McDonald's. We met when we worked at McDonald's. He fell in love with a lady of the night, and saw her at Bayside and ran that car square into it. It's at Bayside, and when you drive past, it's a small 20. It used to be 24 hours. It changed now, but like you could see like there was this fresh brick, and it's like, I wonder what happened with that.
Is dancing with
Only thing
me.
that I remember about Bayside was the only time that I ever went to eat there. My waitress was like some 80-year-old woman that was vacuuming while she was taking my order and serving us, and she had like 15 nicotine patches on her arms. And I just thought it was the strangest thing ever, like to be vacuuming while serving me my food, and then just like arm filled up with nicotine patches.
And doing a
remember that person.
on Batman impression.
Oh yeah, she had that raspy voice. Where is he? Where is he?
Where's the trigger?
The joys of a small town.
You know, like a lot of these like strange people in the night, they always have that story. They got to get 3 towns over because their sister's having a baby. Like maybe back when I was younger, I would have fell for it and been like, oh no, I got to help you. Nowadays, it's like, man, tell your sister to have her kids at a more convenient time.
Just the other night, I stopped in a gas station and a man with a broken nose and a black eye asked me if he could use my cell phone. And it was like probably close to 10:30 at night. And I was like, there's no way that I'm handing you my cell phone unlocked.
No.
Yeah,
there's nothing good that you are doing or you have done that involves you using my phone.
He was like, my girl needs to use the phone. I was like, yeah, probably to see if the plug's on the way. That was the only thing I think that he was doing.
And now your phone's implemented into crime, and you need to get a new phone.
Absolutely,
that's crazy. I had a lady come up. This isn't meant to be a brag or anything, but I typically buy people food. But I had a woman come up to me, and she was like, I got cancer up here in my lymph nodes, and I got it in my sides, and I was just needing this, and you could tell she had been experienced. She had some fun in her days, and I was like, "Ma'am, you don't need to tell me everything. Like it's okay. What do you need?" And she's like, "I just need some frozen biscuits." I was like, "Okay, let's go get some frozen biscuits."
Right,
and that made her whole day better, ma'am.
I had one time, I had a guy, he had one little sock, one big sock, no shoes, and a saucepan on top of his head. He told me that I looked exactly like Obama. And for anybody else there listening, I do not. Not in the slightest. But anyway, let's go on with the story.
He was wearing a saucepan.
I just want to say that YouTube influencers have ruined me because I always think that if I tell somebody that I don't have a couple dollars, I'm not going to get the $10,000 cash prize for being nice to somebody randomly.
What dick bags, dude.
Right? So YouTube influencers have ruined bums for me.
All right.
Moving forward.
We could talk bums for a while.
Yeah, we could.
All right. Anyway, so Charles started feeling the guilt bubbling up. He had seen the man approach a few people. If I remember correctly, it was kind of rainy that night. It was definitely foggy. It was just one of those nights where he probably would have hated being stuck with no phone and no ride, because this is 1991. And I'm telling you right now, like if you had a cell phone back then, you had 3 jobs, because I remember it was like, we were talking about it today. You were paying 20 cents, 25 cents for each text message back then, if you remember correctly.
It was quite a bit, dude. It was 9 day difference.
Yeah.
They had text messages in 1991?
Sure.
I don't have a history degree, Dan.
Right.
But I do know that if you had the Nokia like pay by like the cards that you could get from Nokia, if you had more than 1 penny but less than 25 cents, you had infinite text messages.
Oh,
you couldn't call anybody, but you could text anyone you wanted. It couldn't charge the amount for it. It was our loophole.
1997 hacks that we wish we knew then. We know now. All right. Anyway, so the guilt started bubbling up, and he came back to the man. He was like, all right, I got a proposition for you. I live a few miles away, like maybe about a half mile or so away. I can take you as far as the road to there will take you. There's a garage that has a payphone on the outside. At least I can get you there. You can go up under the awning, make a few phone calls. You get a little bit closer. That's about as far as I can take you. And immediately the man's whole demeanor changed. He was ecstatic. He was like, okay, yeah. So the two of them agreed, and they hopped in the vehicle and headed down the road. Before the turn onto the road that would bring Charles to his house, he pulled into that mechanic shop and he told that man, all right, this is where I was telling you about. There's the payphone there. This is as far as I can take you. And upon hearing that, that man immediately just became enraged and reached down and grabbed a screwdriver and tried to stab Charles, because the news that he was not going any farther on this ride to go see this mystery baby in the middle of the night, I mean, that made him violent. At least that's the way that Charles tells it.
Yeah, he went from casual, crazy person middle of the night to absolute dickbag in the matter of a few minutes. But yeah, the two, I mean, they definitely had a fight. I mean, Charles had bloody fingernails, and I mean, you could see where there had been a struggle.
Oh yeah, they got out of the vehicle. There was a scuffle. There was a tuffle. I'm not sure if he got stabbed with a screwdriver. I'm pretty sure he got nicked with it a few times.
So you're telling me there was a scuffle and a tuffle?
A scuffle and a tuffle. There was
goodness.
Toil and trouble. It was not good, ladies and gentlemen.
No, so he wasn't stabbed, right? Like he might have been grazed by it or something like that, but it wasn't.
I wonder
He didn't go to the hospital with a screwdriver wound. You know what I mean?
I'm pretty sure that it was like enough to scrape and break the skin. It was definitely annoying.
I mean, if it was a flathead.
Oh, he definitely needed some Bactine.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
A kiss from his mom would have been nice.
If it was a Phillips head, it probably would have stabbed and left some blood blisters, just from my own experience of working and shit. But a flathead, that's going to penetrate the skin, especially when you're dealing with a crazy person.
Right. Well,
depending on the level of cocaine.
At that moment in time,
we'll get to that.
Charles, he had to think quick. All right, here's a man. He's got a screwdriver. He's wielding a weapon. He doesn't know. He's probably not ever dealt with this type of crazy before, because I feel like on the ride over there, I would have already picked up on the social cues that something's wrong with this man. I don't know how he went from a casual car ride to stabbing without there being, red flags to get popped up in the way. But quickly thinking, Charles decided, all right, listen, man, I'll take you where you need to go. We'll get back in the truck. I'll overlook the attempted murder, and we'll go and wherever it is you need to go. And how about that? And at that point in time, the man calmed down. He was excited. He was gleaming with excitement all over again. He was like, all right. So they start heading back towards the truck, and that's when the bamboozle starts. Charles takes off running, because when Charles had jumped out of the truck, he had brought the keys with him, which was smart on Charles's part. Right. At least, I was like, yes, go Charles. You got 1 point. And he runs, jumps back into the truck, and takes off with the man shaking his fist and cussing and screaming, probably tapping on the side of the vehicle. The whole spiel, when crazies are worked up for the second time.
They're doing that one finger, like, I see you, I know you, I see you, see me.
Right.
I hope he used that. Hey, what's that over there? It's not gonna work.
I imagine the whiplash, because he went from violent rage to enthusiasm back to violent rage so fast in just a few moments.
Dude, yeah, that's just got to be a roller coaster. Like, You know, he was screaming at the sky. Like his throat had to hurt from all the fucking shouting he was doing.
How
And
far?
shout out to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
How far down the road do you think Charles made it before he breathed out that sigh of relief too? Like, oh my God, I just dodged a bullet.
I guess it depends on his cardio, right? Because
Right?
you definitely chase that car at least 2 houses before you run out.
How many
right?
times do you think he looked in his rearview mirror?
Just taps the brake to see the shadow. But you mentioned a few minutes ago, or a few whatever. But Charles is not used to dealing with that type of person. That's because anybody who's ever dealt with that type of person knows you don't pick up fucking strangers and give them a ride. Like that's a one like once one hitchhiker ruins it for everyone.
I want to bring back a callback. Earlier, we were talking about the difference between Thursday night crowd and Friday night crowd at the Hardee's. There's a difference between like 9:30 hitchhikers and 1 o'clock in the morning hitchhikers as well.
Yeah.
The same rules apply.
Well, I think about there was a time when I was leaving y'all's place. I don't remember the situation, but it was another incident where I decided I needed to walk off into the night while I was drunk. And I was walking home and I came across a black bear on Highway 24. And I threw a Gatorade at it and started sprinting.
That's a different type of hitchhiker.
I'm sorry?
So that's a different type of hitchhiker.
Yeah, well, I just don't.
Why are you trying to pick up a black bear? Hey, where are you trying to go, man?
Well, I wasn't in any real danger, but that doesn't go through your mind when you come across a bear on the middle of the highway at whatever hour in the morning it was.
Speaking of honey patches, I was wondering something. I'm sorry, how do you think we figured out that honey was delicious? Do you think that like we went up to the bee's nest and just got stung and just started taking bites out of that thing? Or do you think we stalked animals that had already figured out that bees had that sweet, gooey, tasty stuff in there, and we took a bite out of the animal that was taking a bite out of the beehive and was like, oh man, this is good.
Don't answer that question, Richard. I got an idea. How about everybody, you go onto the Facebook page or wherever you listen to our show and you tell us how you think that came about.
Yes. I want to
Let's get a listener challenge here.
Well, there's oh man, my mind's going to 4 or 5 different places with that one. But I'm not going to say anything, so I'm going to bring it back to hitchhikers real quick.
Trial and error, yeah.
So, yes.
All right. So,
well, then, how do you find out? Oh, okay. I gotta say it. I gotta say it. So the first person goes up. Turns out they're allergic to bees, and they fucking die horribly. And then that entire tribe's just fucked from honey. Like
we can't eat it. It's forbidden. And then they see animals eating it, and then they eat that animal, and it's like, oh, wait a second. Maybe
this one's sweeter.
Maybe we judged this honey stuff incorrectly. That should have killed that bear.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the best way to do it is go out and get yourself marooned on a desert island and see how long it takes for instincts to kick in.
Good thing I got a long life on my battery.
Right?
Cell phone, so that can fix me. Yes, there's a joke where it's like a guy picks up a hitchhiker and he goes, man, he's like, are you sure you need to be hitchhiking? Aren't you worried? Like, so you might pick up a serial killer. And the guy laughs and goes, what are the chances of 2 serial killers being in the same car? So,
that's a good way to break the ice with people that are picking you up.
Yeah. Just immediately go to serial killer.
I hate riding with people that pick up other people that lead to those kind of crazy situations. Like when you got a dopey friend that's driving and it's just like, oh no, this will be fine. And then they pick up that turns into some kind of awful adventure that takes 3 hours of your life away with some crazy person.
and you get stuck at a house and you don't know anybody there, and somebody is always mad and something's missing and they're yelling.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh shit, man! I just remembered something that happened to us. We picked up a hitchhiker one time, and it was me and a good buddy of mine. This is in our military days. We were doing the right thing. It was a chick. She was walking down the road, and this is you're right. The 12 o'clock in the afternoon hitchhiker is very different than the 1 o'clock in the morning hitchhiker. And dude, she was wearing a jacket. It was cold outside. That's why we picked her up. And then, God, fucking the balls on that chick to getting in a car with two dudes.
Right.
But yeah, I gave her a cigarette, and she gets out of the car. She's fucking pregnant, bro. Like,
Oh wow.
I gave a pregnant woman a fucking cigarette. And I felt so goddamn bad about that, dude.
I feel like we were all cigarette babies, honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, they knew better. They didn't care. I know better and care.
Oh,
And we're all
No.
cigarette smokers or recovering cigarette smokers.
I got a
Yeah.
funny story about a hitchhiker real quick, and we'll get back to the story. So, all right. So a while back, you remember whenever me and John used to play our music in the trailer park, and we had those like 6 crackheads that just loved our music?
Oh, yeah, yeah. The crackheads loved it. It changed their entire day.
So one time, me and John, we used to go out to where the Nightmare Factory is a place, like it's a pretty famous haunted house area, but there's a little block out there where there's like a bar and there's like an all-night gas station and all this. Me and John used to go out in that area and just hang out. Well, we're standing outside smoking a cigarette. I might have been drinking a beer or something like that. This woman pulls up. She sees me standing out there. It's like, hey, you got a lighter? Don't know her, but she's obviously like kind of like flirting with me. I'm like, yeah, I gotcha. I walk over there. She's like, what are you getting into tonight? And it's like, I'm just hanging out. She's like, oh, yeah? Maybe I want to hang out. One of those crackheads happened to notice me. I kind of waved off in the distance. This girl like kind of signals me to come over, and then like he sees me and he goes riding up to her car on his bike. And as I'm going to light my cigarette for her, he jumps in her car. And she looks in the back seat and starts screaming, and she drives off as fast as she can, like kicks him out, and she's screaming, driving with her doors open, fast as she can away from there.
You know, one great thing about a crackhead is they are wild cards. You just
I
don't
thought
know.
It was funny because he turns to me and he's like, "Oh, you guys are those drunken assholes that play the music, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah, that's us."
Yeah, you remember me. Oh, dude, that's fucking crackheads, man. I've been around that stuff in so long that it's just it's funny. It's funny to think about like the stuff you tolerate when you live around that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like that's normal, dude. Like that was just that was a Wednesday night.
You know, honestly, that feeling that Charles had looking in his rearview mirror that he had just narrowly escaped death, I probably spent like half of my life during that time in my life with that feeling.
Yeah, when you finally ditched a crazy person.
Side note, one time we slowly got stuck in the mud and was driving away while Dueling Banjos was playing on Sherman's radio, and a crazy crackhead drunk guy was chasing the car saying he was going to kill me and Dan.
Yeah, I didn't know the only time that he threatened us like that either. I was just thinking about that there was a time that he was like at our house mad, and John and me weren't talking. We were signaling to each other. We had this big axe handle in the closet, and we were signaling to each other like, hey, if something goes down, grab the axe handle. We're going to kill him. Me and John can kind of read each other's minds sometimes. That guy was looking at us, looking at each other, and he goes, you guys are planning on killing me with that axe handle that you have, aren't you? And John's like, no, not at all. I'm like, just sit down quietly and take it like a man.
All right. And that is all. Oh, boy. That was a whole rabbit hole right there.
Man, to be in our 20s again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm glad that I'm on this side, taking the deep breath of sigh of relief that we survived.
that relief because dude, I remember, man, I was just thinking about that area between like in the Newport, like that where Newport and Craven, like Carteret and Craven meet at in the Newport. Like
Yeah.
there's a few of them, dude. I remember
Oh yeah.
like I remember being in my like where I lived at this trailer behind a gas station that wasn't really a gas station, it was a bar. And
Right.
like the
Oh, yeah.
cops swarming the next house over. And we're like, fuck. And we're all freaking out. And you just don't know. It's just a kind of a normal thing that happens in your life. But it's
I've
not.
got a
It's not
theory
normal.
about that, and this will be the last theory before we move on. So the prison is right there. They get out of that prison. That's the first town that they settle in. And those are just, it's kind of like Australia. That's just generations of first generation prisoners settling in that land.
It just feeds through. And we're actually in the near future we're actually going to cover some of the corruption that happened in those sheriff's departments that are right there.
Oh, we're just going to go right into the thick of it. We need to talk to these people.
We got to go live on the scene.
We got to get that's what we're talking about, that flea mole. That's right there in the heart of it, man. We got to get the real story.
I don't like going back there at all, man. My heart, I can feel my blood pressure rise and my heart rate go up.
Right.
As soon as I get to like Kinston, North Carolina, it's like I hit Eastern North Carolina. I'm like, ew. I get kind of grossed out. But
speaking of which, heart racing. Charles looking in his rearview mirror, narrowly dodging a stabbing. He decides at that point in time, driving back to his house directly was probably going to be the wrong move. So he decides he's going to take the back way, maybe take his time. I'm pretty sure, like, if he was a smoker, he smoked a cigarette, you know what I mean, and sat there for a minute just contemplating how his life had gotten thus far.
Dude, he works late nights. He almost got stabbed by a crackhead with a screwdriver, and he's got a bag of probably spoiled Hardee's fries. He's smoking a cigarette, dude. He's got some Marlboro Reds, maybe some Camel unfilters.
Exactly. So he starts driving. He's finally decided. I believe he said about 30 minutes had gone by, which he was only a half a mile from his house. To turn a half a mile into a 30-minute drive is, that's pretty astonishing, all a feat of nature as it is. So he pulls into his driveway feeling like, all right, this has been an ordeal, but I'm finally home. And lo and behold, when his lights hit the front window of his house, there stands a man peering through the window, looking through to see if anybody is inside. At this point in time, Charles was not sure if this was the man that he had just encountered on the road, or if this was yet another man who was going to go for a dual peak of just terror in Charles's life. I know this is a story of coincidences, but what would it have been if it had have been a second person trying to break into his house at that point in time? Man, spoiler alert, it wasn't. It was that man, but had it been somebody else, wouldn't that have been the craziest night of his life by far?
Oh, yeah.
But, it's probably the only way it tops the night of his life is if it happened a second time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was a second person. That's the only way that this becomes weirder or even remotely stranger.
I know one thing. It would be, okay, I went to get a burger on Friday. Two crazy people antagonized me. I would be going to church on Sunday. That's one of those like call to God moments right there.
Yeah, that might actually get me into like a Buddhist temple or some shit.
Exactly. Lo and behold, though, Charles just backed right on up, and he was like, I'm going to do what I should have done in the first place when I was attacked with a screwdriver.
And he killed him with a car.
I'm going to go back to that garage and use that payphone and call the police, which is probably the smartest thing that Charles has done so far in this evening. Aside from he was working, he was at a job. Like, that was probably the only other smart decision he made. You got to pay the bills. But he gets back there, and let me tell you a little facts about Harrington, Delaware, right? So this is a small town, and they don't actually have a police department there in their town. So whenever they call, they have to call out to the sheriff, which in turn has to send a sheriff to the location to do any type of investigation. So, I'm not sure how the phone call went. I don't know if he was like, hey, there was a crazy man. He tried to stab me. And now there's another person trying to break into my house. And lo and behold, though, prowling was low on the list of priorities that night. And it took him about an hour, I believe it was, before they actually showed up to speak with Charles, which I thought was insane.
Yeah.
It happens more. I think that happens more frequently than we would like to know about, because there are some municipalities that they just can't support that until they have to deal with like like county sheriffs or some shit.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's no fucking telling what's going on.
Yeah, that's like some of those people you see, like rich people especially. They'll go to move like somewhere really remote. That's something that kind of leads to these kind of situations. Like you're out there, and also if you're surrounded by a bunch of poor, crazy people, you're going to be a target. So like you pretty much have to learn self-defense for yourself. Like you're kind of out there on your own.
I actually judge places that I'm going to physically go and visit by how long I think it would take for first responders to get to me.
Yeah.
If I think that it's going to take more than 15 minutes for the police or the rescue to show up or anything with flashing lights, I'm not going there. After an hour of probably the strangest night of his life, a sheriff shows up, and that's I just couldn't. I could only imagine how he started off that conversation. Like, all right, I was at Hardee's. I was getting a burger. A guy asked for a ride. There was his sister's having a baby. I told him I would take him this far. It's kind of rainy. I'm being a good Samaritan. There's a screwdriver. He tries to stab me. I bamboozled him. I drove down the road.
Someone's trying to get in my house.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. And needless to say, after a small amount of convincing, the sheriff decided he was going to follow Charles over there just on the safe side and see if there was anybody still out there, if maybe it was a trespasser. You never can tell in those situations. It could have been somebody, their car broke down, or they had been in an accident maybe. They were looking for a phone. You never really know what it is. I mean, I don't answer my door late at night. I don't know about you guys. Well, I live with you, Dan, so I know you don't. But
there was a night where someone rang our doorbell in the middle of the night and asked us for a ride. It was snowing outside, and me and a good friend of mine, we gave this poor woman a ride all the way down the end of a 2-lane road. That fucking sucks. It's the only time I've ever done that.
Yeah,
not doing that ever again. People text and call before they show up in the middle of the night now.
Yeah, and even because we're from a small town, I remember in Tennessee, people if you were walking around in the street at night, people's dogs would start barking, and then they would go turn their lights on. They would go stand on their porch. Because one time I had to walk a distance. I ended up getting attacked by a horse when I was walking. But I was trying to walk to find a phone to call John, because before we had cell phones. And I just remember people's dogs were barking. They'd turn their light on. They'd walk outside and they'd stare at me. It's just, you feel weird already, walking in those small towns like that.
I've been in the situation where I was in a minor car crash and we had to ring a doorbell. It was late at night before cell phones. And we needed a phone. We needed help. And the guy came there with a shotgun. I was 19 years old. He put a shotgun in my face. So I've been on that side of it too, to where I genuinely needed help, and I wasn't. So,
but it comes back to that, these people being out there in the country, being
exactly
ready because they never know what's going to happen. So it's
exactly.
It's not necessarily meant to be like that, but it's what you got to do,
right?
Well, it's a dangerous game. I mean, there's 4 or 5 recent stories where people have been shot going up to knock on a door.
Right.
Didn't say anything, just boom, bullet. That's tough.
Yeah. All right. So moving forward, the police go inside of Charles's house with them. When they get to the property, they check it out. And Charles, for some reason, his mother popped into his mind because the way the property was set up, he lived in a trailer that was behind his mother's house. It was all the same property. She had the house on the main road, and then at the end of her driveway was his trailer. And he said that while he was waiting on the officer, he had called his mother a couple of times because that guy was out there prowling around. He wasn't sure why he was there. He wasn't sure if it was the man he had encountered earlier. He couldn't get a hold of her. And he was like, well, while you're here, let's go check on my mom. She's not answering the phone. I can't remember if she was 80 or 90 years old. I'm not really sure. But either way, I could see how she didn't hear the phone at 1:30 in the morning. And I could understand why she wouldn't be awake. But he said that every night she waits up to say goodnight to him because he works that late shift before she goes to bed. So it was nothing for her in her routine to be up at that night waiting on him to get home. I know that was a tidbit that I'd picked up while researching this.
She was actually 70 years old.
70. So she was still in her prime, huh? She was still kicking. Maybe just coming home from bingo.
She looked like a grandma, dude. She did. She had that curly hair and everything.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But this is back before we had like testosterone replacement therapies and shit. So she was just naturally 70, not modern.
I know
70.
that if you watched anything about Dateline investigative reports or any of these true crime, the only thing that ensures something bad happening is if you can light up a room, because that's always what they say. She had a personality that could light up a room, and she was also the victim of a horrendous crime. And so,
yeah, it's like being the character that's being introduced on Star Trek, like that isn't the normal character up in the front seat. You know what I'm talking about? Just like lighting up a room. You know something's gonna happen every time.
Kind of like how he was a good man. He was a good guy. No, he's probably a dick.
He had a smile.
You never hear them like, yeah, he kind of deserved to be killed. She deserved it. She was just a bitter old
real
woman.
Prick.
She never put candy out in bowls.
Chances are they did.
She never knitted us a quilt. Really, Ray, just awful woman, trash lady.
There's only one
were subpar.
And that's a story I want to cover in the future where a whole town witnessed a man's murder and he was such an asshole, nobody spoke up.
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with that story.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving forward.
Dick bag.
Yeah. So Charles convinces the officer to go and check on his mother's house. And when they approached the house, he wasn't exactly wrong. The first thing they noticed was that the back door, the glass, had been broken out. Now, the door was still locked, which was something that I picked up that I thought was kind of crazy. The door was still locked. So the cop was kind of like, we'll go inside, we'll check it out. But, anything could have happened to this door. So they go inside. They're calling out for his mother, Dorthy. Dorthy Donovan was her name. They're calling out for his mother, and she's not answering. They make their way down the hallway and up the stairs. And it was at that moment in time that they discovered a grisly scene. From the definition of what they said, it looked like Dorothy had been the victim of a rage killing. That was the only way they could describe it, because the amount of stab wounds and just the whole scene, it was a horror show. It was an absolute horror show.
So let's just to recap. Charles wanted a burger. Hard day, work. Stops at his Hardee's, runs into a stranger. Stranger gets crazy, gives him some story about a baby that he needs to go and visit. Sister. He picks him up to give him a ride. Drives him, tells him he's like can only drive him a certain distance. Drives him that distance. Guy freaks out. Oh crap! I just realized the road that he drove him to was called Killin Pond Road. Anyways, guy
Coincidence number one.
Stabs him with a screwdriver. Then from there, he escapes. The man narrowly escapes. Realizes that his house is about to be broken into. Calls the sheriff. Has to wait a while for the sheriff. Wants to go check on his mom. His mom's house has been broken into, and she's been killed.
And the killer locked the door on the way out. Now, I don't know if you guys think that that's the craziest thing that you've ever heard, because the police officer sure did. And upon a little bit of investigating, they realized that Miss Donovan had a brand new life insurance policy. And
oh no. The guys have been frozen. So, what John is going to say is that there is a life insurance policy that has been taken out in the by Miss Donovan, and it shit is in the name of her son, the one who had picked up the hitchhiker. So, we're going to do some pausing right here, and we'll probably come back in just a few minutes and restart this conversation. Thumbs up. All right, you're good.
all right. So
There was a life insurance policy.
Ah, Shay.
Yeah.
Life insurance.
So, yeah, he was the main beneficiary. And that at that moment,
The detectives had an eyebrow raise.
I kind of would too. That sounds like a far-fetched story. It sounds like one of the craziest things that they'd probably ever heard in their life. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, you got all this stuff where, like, you're saying, this man attacked you, and then all of a sudden he appeared on your property, and then from there, he was outside of your house, and then your mom's house has a broken window, but I mean, on the door. Was it on the door? Like the glass of the door? But the door is locked. And was there a sign of struggle?
Not only that,
You said it looked like a rage murder.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the knives, the stab wounds were signs of struggle for sure.
Yeah. And whoever it was, they navigated the house in the dark, a house they had never been to. Like, there was so many things that just weren't adding up. And I know, like, the same thing that I thought about when I first was, because this was the point in the story where, like, you get all the foreshadowing and the narrator is just really leading you in all types of directions. Your mind really starts racing. It sounds like something out of a cheesy TV movie.
It's an urban legend is what it is.
Right.
It's fucking like beyond fiction
and
is what this is.
Also, the fact that her purse was untouched and, like, some of her belongings weren't, like, out of place or anything like that, that made it kind of weird, too. Like, you'd think that if it was something like that, a crazy guy trying to break in, he's going to steal some of this stuff.
Needless to say, they bring I mean, it's kind of like when we discover a body. You're immediately the first suspect.
Yeah.
And
new life insurance policy for sure.
Right. And another thing is because this is like the bingo night, and I was serious about that. This is the bingo night, Dorothy. She's a leader at the church. She plays piano at the church. She has a million friends. In fact, they said that she was one of the nicest ladies in the entire world.
Oh, not to mention, they found out that Charles had financial problems. The state police did, and then they already had a hard time believing that this guy would have walked a half mile to find this property out of all the properties on the road and things like that. but they find out that he has financial problems, that he's going to be the beneficiary of this life insurance policy of hers. And on top of that, they ask him to take a polygraph test, and not a polygrip test. They would have asked the woman probably if she had false teeth, but he refused to take the polygraph test as well. So things were just not looking very good for him. And whenever
never take a fucking polygraph.
Never.
Don't fucking
I know
do it.
that
Let
now.
them think you're
Right.
suspicious.
This was in the 90s, though. People still believed those back then.
Right.
So,
I know one thing. His family was torn because they fully fledged. As soon as all the suspicion came about, they were like, "Damn, dude, our brother did it. Our brother killed our mother," and they you couldn't convince them otherwise. And he just kept pleading with them, like, "No, I didn't." And they were like, "So, if you didn't do it, then you picked up a crazy person that you inadvertently brought to our mother's house, and you got her mother killed." And either way, like they just couldn't get past the fact that this was his fault. And that was one thing that I read, that they put a giant rift in their family that was never fully repaired. Because that just, they could, I mean, who else would it have been? Here's Charles, the financial trouble with a crazy story about the wildest night, and who's a beneficiary, the sole beneficiary of this policy.
So up until this point, they're just all focusing on all of the resources on Charles. Like, no, just everything seemed to not add up. It was looking suspicious. It wasn't until they went back to the Hardys and they actually found witnesses that corroborated his story. Apparently there were people there, and a lot of them seen the scuffle that he had with the guy across the street. And they saw him get in the truck, I should say. But there were also witnesses that saw the whole chasing Charles around at the intersection. And apparently the witnesses that saw the whole altercation, they identified the attacks on Charles that matched his wounds that he had on his body.
Another thing, that they found a bloody palm print in Dorothy's house and a little bit of DNA, and it did not match Charles. And another giant theory that they came up with was, well, maybe Charles had hired somebody to kill his mother. And that was the second direction that they took the case in.
So they're keeping it on Charles because they just anytime someone mentions life insurance, more often than not, it's going to end up being guilty. Like, that's what, with all the true crime that I watch and things like that, as soon as they mention life insurance, I'm like, okay, there's the motive right there.
And that's the thing. He had the means. He had the motive. All of the signs were there. He didn't want to take the polygraph test, which, I know that you're never supposed to take one. Don't ever take one. But at the same time, it was just red flag after red flag.
I always think when it comes to polygraph test, I always think of that episode of Beavis and Butthead where they had to take one for Burger World.
Yeah.
And Butthead tells them the way to pass it is just to hold their breath. And then Beavis is just holding his breath. And then the thing starts going off the scale and he passes out.
Yeah, it's fucking wild, man.
Oh, go ahead.
I do want to revisit the whole attempted stabbing thing with Charles at the when they get out of the car, right? I like the idea that this deranged psycho is okay, 2 stabs get you where you need to go. Mental note, right? And there's that brief moment where he's like, okay, next time I'm in this situation, 3's too many. One's not enough. And then he hits the lock button. He's, you bastard.
I got to make sure to stab him with something that keeps him alive too. Do not stab him with something that makes him dead. Otherwise, I can't get to destination.
Yeah, because you're like going through this. You know what I mean?
I can't stab him dead. Otherwise, I can't get to cocaine.
Do you think there's a crazy checklist?
People who gets arrested. I have checklists in my head, for sure.
Lovely.
Like those exist for sure. They're the people who
I
are like
definitely made a note of
neurotic
that,
about things,
right?
huh?
Nothing.
Good thing you know about it. You guys are having that conversation again, huh? Yeah, no, I joke about it, but like no, like I pretend like I like to pretend that I'm a crazy person who pretends to be sane. And
You know who doesn't have to pretend he's a crazy person? Gilbert Connor.
Gilbert Connor.
Gilbert Connor.
Oh, so like we said there's witnesses. So they asked for a description of the suspect, and so his killer is described as a black male in his late 20s or early 30s, 5'8" to 5'9", 150 pounds, with a slender build and a pockmarked complexion. What the hell is that? What is pockmarked?
Lawrence Fishburne, the actor, he's got the spots on his side. They're like,
oh, chicken pox.
That's what that is. They're pockmarks.
Oh,
Gotcha.
So-
Now it makes sense.
that makes absolute sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up the so there is an incredible sketch artist who drew a picture. I'm gonna pull that up on the screen real quick.
Right?
That we can all see exactly what we're talking about.
We were talking when we decided that we were going to do this episode. Richard and I made a phone call, and that's something that he mentioned was a lost art, was sketch artists. I know
He looks like he looks like if Drew Carey and Wayne Brady had a baby.
Shit. Oh, that's amazing. That is a
anyways,
fantastic joke.
enter Gilbert Connor. So Gilbert Connor was a drug addict. He was an alcoholic, and he was a criminal. He was a thug, mainly. I know that
He was from Maryland.
Yes, he was. He
Yes,
fought
he
crabs
was.
better
You know,
than cats do.
You know, that's funny that you say that you have these feelings that sometimes you're a crazy person. Where are you from, Richard?
Not from Maryland. Wah, wah, wah.
Oh, really?
Well, you know, I will say the difference between a
screwdriver
Richard
from
and a
him.
Gilbert is so when they did the sketch and they had the fingerprints, but they didn't have like who they were looking at. The police gave a lineup to the people, and all of them pointed towards one person, a man named Richard Mitchell.
Yeah.
Do you know who didn't violently murder someone that night?
Who's that?
Richard Mitchell.
Wow. Well, so
Not complete dicks.
people
is the
from
point.
Maryland could be murderers, but people named Richard might not be. So you got a 50-50 shot with you, bud.
Okay. We're taking the heat off you for now. For now, till more evidence comes in. So
Oh,
they
that's
got
amazing.
the DNA, but why didn't they do it right away? Like was this before like they could collect DNA and they knew that in the future DNA might play a part, but
So
they couldn't test it?
that's something that we're going to cover. And the next few cases that we go through, especially one we got coming up that we're going to actually really go into a deep dive on. And not only was there not, I know now we have this giant database with everybody's DNA and fingerprints in it. And you can't, I mean, I'll tell you right now, if you commit a crime in Florida, they will chase you to the ends of the earth.
Yeah, Florida.
That is something
the
that
one state that no
they
matter what
extradite.
it is, they will find you and take you.
They will extradite you from another country.
So note to
Yeah.
self: don't go to Florida
Ever.
never.
But
I actually have a family trip scheduled for Florida
Oh,
We're
you're
gonna
going to go on vacation. You're going to leave on probation, huh?
That's good.
Anyways,
What are, I mean,
avoid
like,
the gators, and I'll be all right.
I was gonna say, like, you're like, think about it, like your DNA gets left so many different places. Like, how easy could it be that like your DNA could be left somewhere, and then how lazy could some cops be to just find your DNA and then just say, oh, well, this matches, and then next thing you know, you're arrested for something you didn't have something to do with.
I mean, look at all the Innocence Project is one of the major things right now. DNA has exonerated so many people, and then yet there's still so many cases where DNA doesn't exonerate people.
Yeah, but it's like our own, or like it's one of the last line of defenses for evidence, because eyewitness has gotten to where it's not really reliable. Polygraph is not reliable, never was to begin with. Fingerprint, they actually had a case of one guy that his fingerprints matched on a terrorist, and he got arrested and like extradited to a country to face trial that he'd never been to. And he was held for like 2 months, I think it was, at one of those like black camps. He wasn't like, they say he wasn't tortured like too bad, but like, because they held him there because they weren't 100% sure.
What amount of torture is not, you know what I'm saying?
They
like
roughed
any torture is.
Well, they roughed him up, but they didn't give him jelly legs like they have other terrorists where they bash his bones.
He was in Guantanamo Light, not not North Korea.
But he had never been to one of those countries, and you would think that they would figure that out quickly by using passports and things like that. But that's how horny some of these investigators get for just like, oh, I got this person, it matches, and like how long it took them to realize that there can be these coincidences. So like DNA was like the last bastion of like unadulterated evidence. But even now, like, you can poke holes in this because like your DNA can be left easily anywhere. I could smoke a cigarette.
That's the thing.
And then I throw a cigarette down, and then later on somebody gets murdered next to that cigarette.
I can think of cases where DNA could not, I mean, if you find someone else's DNA, even if the person who committed the crime is, like, say it's the husband and he committed the crime, if they find anyone else's DNA and he did do it, it's going to exonerate him. But they can find his DNA all over the place, and he can just immediately be like, oh, well, that's because that was my wife. Of course my DNA would be there. So,
or think of like a situation where you're like on it, like you're drinking at a bar or something like that. You go out walking, looking for a cab. You're smoking a cigarette or something like that, or drinking, throw a cup down. You lose your phone or something like that. And then next thing you know, something happens there, somebody dies, body gets left there, like a drug deal gone wrong or something. There's a cigarette with your DNA on it. Your cell phone that you lost is there. It's pinging on the tower. That's 2 key evidence pieces that they use right there that they've convicted people. And it takes forever to get it overturned.
Right.
Now, we're poking holes in that. But this DNA was searched through the database. What was it, 2004?
Yes.
And they had a direct match to, we had the picture up there earlier, was Gilbert
Connor. Cannon. Sorry, I said Gilbert Connor. It was Cannon.
And it was, you couldn't have had a more direct match with the police sketch.
Right. His palm print matched, his DNA matched. And you look at that sketch artist picture, and my God, that guy was spot on. I mean, that was the most amazing sketch I've ever seen in my entire life.
He was already in the criminal database. That's how they had his DNA for robbery, for breaking and entering, for larceny, for drug charges, and for murder. So, I mean, he's checking some serious check marks here.
He hit all the boxes. Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's definitely a prime candidate to like. Okay, this dude. You know, it doesn't explain why his handprint would be somewhere or why his blood would be on a light switch.
Yeah.
the
So
next state over, unless he was on a
Now,
magical adventure to find some random
he
sister's
tried to
baby.
deny it at first. He tried to say he had nothing to do with it, but when they
this
confronted
is the
him,
part of the story that just was going to blow your mind. So they bring him in to interrogate him. They sit him down and they're like, okay, so that night, we just got to know. You tried to kill that man. He wouldn't take you. Why did you go to his house and go and kill his mother? And he's like, whose mother? And they're like, the guy with, the screwdriver incident.
the man you attacked.
And it was at that moment in time, the police, Gilbert, and Charles all came to the same conclusion. It was just a mere coincidence that night there was 4 other houses on that road. He passed every single one of them
to go to the trailer.
When he realized, when somebody pulled up to the trailer and he ran away, he stopped at the first house that he thought was abandoned. That he said that it looked like the upkeep wasn't kept up on it. It really looked like it was an abandoned house, which I could see that.
He broke in there. Keep in mind, like, we did skip over something. So, like, he did actually, like, try to deny it at first. But when they hit him with all this evidence, he was like, okay, I was high on cocaine and I was trying to get more cocaine. That's why I attacked him at the Hardee's. I wanted a ride. There really wasn't a pregnant sister 2 towns over. That's where the cocaine is. But anyways, so he goes to this house because he needs somewhere to sleep. He breaks in, and the woman's standing there like, well, what are you doing? And he knew that she would fingerprint him for breaking and entering, so he killed her. And it turned out that it happened to be the guy that he attacked earlier that owned the trailer that he tried to break into and ran away happened to be his mom, too. Just a mere coincidence.
The wildest thing.
He had no idea. He was just as shocked as the police were and as Charles was, finding out that he did that. All of them at the same time, realizing I killed. What a coincidence. What a small world. That's probably what he said. Small world.
The problem that I had was all those years, his sisters, as much as I hate to say it, they're not wrong for the way that they felt. If he had not picked that man up that night, none of that would have ever happened. They're not exactly wrong, and it's just the way that it played out. I know Charles is like, man, I couldn't have ever in my wildest dream imagined that would all happen, but at the same time, it did happen because of that. Like,
it's so hard
with that. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's so hard. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I tried to theorize, like, because you think like it can't be like that coincidental. Like nothing has ever seemed like it's that coincidental. I mean, like they say that World War I kind of happened with a crazy coincidence like that, but like you think that maybe he picked the guy up. He's talking to him like, oh yeah, I'm on my way home. I only live this far down the road, on X road or whatever. And then by happenstance, the criminal remembered that road. Maybe he described like, oh yeah, I live on the same street as my mom. And then like subconscious kicked in and that's how it happened. But according to them, that's not what happened at all. Like he never mentioned any of these and it's just a weird coincidence. Like I try to rationalize these kind of things.
It really is. It's hard to think that way through. Like,
and it through the police so many different directions because at first they're thinking, like she's got this brand new life insurance policy. He has these debts that are unsettled. And then you find out about this guy and there's witnesses that match his story. And it's like, okay, maybe he knew him and he hired him. And then it turns out the guy
was just nuts.
Yeah. And then
looking for a place to sleep off his cocaine.
And was literally just as surprised that he killed that guy's mom when he found out.
Well, yeah. Like, oh shit. That sucks. Like I can't even put my mind in his seat, right? Like he's like, oh shit, I killed that dude's mom. He was nice enough to give me a ride. Like, is there an extra layer of guilt that goes into that?
See, it's 2 sides of the same coin. that went from 0 to 100 in completely different directions. Because on one side, you have Charles, who went to get a burger on his way home from work, who nearly got stabbed and his mom got murdered. And on the other side, you have a guy who just wanted a little bit more cocaine that ended up almost stabbing a guy to death and then killing his mother later on. So on both sides of that crazy coin, it went in completely different, like directions than it probably should have.
Well, you talk about like stepping on the wrong butterfly.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
That's a good one with the butterfly effect.
fucking wild, man. But now you're talking about the sisters though. So I've experienced death in the family. Well, I'm not going to get into too many details, but I've experienced death in the family where someone has been blamed, not for murdering or like suspicion of murder or anything like that, but somebody was blamed. And it's absolutely an odd situation to be in because you're right, John. People are allowed to feel the way they feel, but you just can't explain certain things.
Right.
Shit happens and it fucking
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, though, is those wounds were never healed. I mean, his sister, she's no longer with us, if you know what I mean, and she
Yeah.
went all the way. And I'm not sure. I know the one sister, they've tried to fix those wounds, but they can't. But the other one, I don't think they ever resolved it. And I can totally understand how she felt because, I mean, it's easy to see how somebody would feel that way.
I don't think that I would like get traumatized. Like, of course, I'd be sad about anything like this happen. It's obviously a tragedy, but like me personally, finding out like that it's just a big crazy coincidence or something like that, it would be a little bit of a relief to me. But also, I guess I'm not like a normal person,
right? I can honestly see how every character in this story, this night went the way that it did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I have been Dorothy that has gone to bed early, and
I've been Charles,
something crazy. Yeah, I've been Charles,
just getting off of work, wanting to eat my Hardee's, and just going on a crazy adventure that turns into 20 other crazy adventures. I hadn't been Gilbert that often.
No,
I'm not, to be honest.
I don't think very many people have been Gilbert. That's an odd situation to be in, just trying to bum a ride and end up killing somebody.
I've actually there's several times that like I've argued with John after dealing with Gilbert type characters, like, why don't they understand this? Why can't they understand why this is crazy? Because they are crazy, and you can't argue with crazy. I mean, Billy Joel said it best: you can never argue with a crazy mind.
Rational will never understand crazy.
It'll drive you crazy trying to figure out crazy.
And we've all dealt with that level of crazy that you're just like, okay, I need to walk away from this. And I think anyone listening to this show has come across somebody, they're like, fuck, this is weird. I don't need to be here right now. Or they go off, or they're in an argument with somebody who's got that extra gear. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like, okay, fucking, we're going down this road. And it just,
I think that we're going to end with one more little story, a memory that I have. And there was a time that I was riding in a car with somebody, and they looked at me, and like there was this look in their eyes, and I got this fear, this god awful fear, this dread came over me. I don't know. I'd never been scared around this person before. And then they just started laughing, and they jerked the car towards the shoulder of the road and just kept laughing like this psychotic laugh. And they did it one more time, and I just opened the door and I jumped out and I walked all the way back home. And I just had this feeling like that situation was going to escalate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I've only had that real dread, like something bad's about to happen, like 3 times in my life. And the one that I can remember distinctly is I can actually feel in my back right now. I walked into a tattoo shop. It was in Maryland, and I had a quick conversation with somebody. And I thought the person worked there because they were the only person in the shop. They did not. And I remember feeling like something just fucking happened. And so I just turned around and I walked out.
Yeah.
And, I didn't see any weird stories like, tattoo shop burned down or anything, but I remember that feeling.
The
That
vibe.
fucking sucks, dude.
You can feel that vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
I was watching something about these people that encountered this man on the Appalachian Trail, which most people on the Appalachian Trail, they all know each other by nicknames and stuff like that. But which also makes me wonder if like towns are busing their crazy and their homeless crazy people to the Appalachian Trail and just dropping them off. But they were seeing this guy that kept taking it to that next level and taking it to that next level. They'd heard about it from other campers, like, watch out for this guy. I think his name was Sovereign or something like that. Watch out for him. This guy's crazy. And these 4 people were camping, and he came up to their tents, and he was like walking up to their tents at night while they're trying to sleep and like whispering stuff like, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to set your tent on fire and things like that. And then he finally started attacking them.
What the fuck?
And like 2 of them ran away. And there was this one guy they called like Stand Your Ground or something like that. And Sovereign ended up attacking him with a machete because he was trying to reason with him. And it just comes back to like, you can't talk to crazy. You can't reason with crazy. When you get those vibes, it's just best to do what those other campers did and bolt out of there. When you get that feeling, the
scariest part of that is the first couple campers that encountered, they would wake up and they would scroll through their photos, and every now and then somebody would have a photo of them sleeping inside of their tent.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm leaving. Fuck that. That's never, nope. You're leaving. You're going to, nope. Sorry.
I knew a girl, like I barely knew this girl, and friends with her, and she was going to go to the Appalachian Trail by herself. And I was like, hey, that sounds kind of dangerous. Do you I've got nothing going on at the moment. Do you want me to go along with you? Looking in hindsight, I didn't. But what if I'd encountered something like that? I barely know this girl. And then I risk losing my life to this. Hindsight 2020, I would not do that again. I'd never offer to go with somebody and help them deal with crazy ever again.
Well, and that's why you don't write music anymore.
Daniel's missing 411.
Yeah. Man, yeah, it's wild, dude. You think about all these little things that have to happen for something strange like that to go the way it did. And then it's just like, fuck, man, maybe we really are just dust in the wind, dude.
You want to be that, like Charles, you want to help people out, especially when you're getting a story like that, because you've been in that, or you worry that you're going to be in that situation yourself. Yeah. And you hope that this time that you look out and you help somebody, that it'll pay back later on, but you never really know. And you can only just hope that your senses and your best judgment pick up from there.
Nope. You need to pretend everybody is Gilbert, and you need to get the hell out of there.
So I think there's 2 things here. So I think that men in general don't see the world for what it is, where a lot of women do. Yeah. I know I've heard my wife talk about her fears and things like that, and there are things that I've never worried about being kidnapped.
No.
You know what I mean? Like that's a real thing that some people have to think about. I'm 6 foot, 200-pound dude. It takes a lot to kidnap me, and I'm pretty goddamn loud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can't. Yeah, it's just one of those fucking things that people think about. And the other thing is trust your emotions.
Yeah, I'm a squirmer, man.
Yeah, Squirrely Dan.
Yeah.
Found only on OnlyDans. Check him out. We have anger, we have fear, we have aggression, we have empathy. We have all of these emotions for a reason. And if
Right.
your body's telling you like, hey dude, this is fucking weird, you need to leave. And I've always acted on that shit. I mean, I don't know how many times you guys have fucking seen me just fucking leave. I just talked about walking off in the middle of the night earlier today. Like,
That's the thing is like, I know I dated a girl and she would say about the fourth time, she'd be like, yeah, I'm getting ready to go. And I'm like, oh shit, you need me to walk you outside because you're a girl. God, I'm stupid. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
my red flags aren't the same as yours. So,
I don't have to worry about that shit. I can go anywhere.
yeah. I'm going to walk my big man
Except
body
in
over here.
Durham. There's places in Durham. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah.
No.
It happens no matter who you are.
Yeah, just Durham's kidnappings or Wednesdays, I guess. So, well, that was fun, guys.
Right.
So, well, we will. So next week we are coming back, and we're gonna have. We're gonna. I'm going to turn this into a series of cops and weird circumstances. So we're probably going to have 2 or 3 episodes for you guys to look forward to.
Cops and circumstance.
Cops and circumstance. Anyways, thanks again for listening. Y'all have a great night.